Now, I did mention on my last video that I need to readjust my credit card strategy because there's many changes in my life that happen. I did mention that all of them were good. But the truth is that about 3 months ago, oh, what is at this point? Yeah, 4 months ago, I got fired from my job.
Bravo.
Well, in the last video, I said that everything is going well, all the changes that happened in my life were great, and that my strategy needs to change when it comes to credit cards because my life has changed. I did say that everything is great, but I never said that I got fired, and I wanted to mention that in this video because I think it's important to talk about some issues. One cold February morning, it was a Monday. I got a call from my then colleague to tell me out of the blue that she got let go and that the company is restructuring our whole department, which led me to get a little frustrated because this came out of nowhere. She said, I hope they're not really meaning what they're saying because that would mean you would lose your job and you have a newborn. And my son was only 2 months old at that point. And a couple of days later, sure enough, I get a message, I get a call from my then manager telling me, hey, I saw you put a day off tomorrow and I wanted to make sure that we talk today. I said, it's not an off, it's a half day off, so I'll be there in the morning. I realized what's going to happen. And next morning I went, sure enough, they told me that they are restructuring the department and that they would no longer need my services. Needless to say, I was with that company for 5.5 years, loyal employee, up to the point, and really good employee. Now, knowing what I know, there was a beef that I had at some point with a senior manager that they brought as a manager for myself and the team, and we really didn't go along very well. We had HR issues a couple of years ago, so I knew that this was some form of retaliation. Didn't pay attention though, because here's a point when everything went well instead of going bad. That Monday, when I got the call from my colleague about her getting laid off, it was my last interview with my new company. So I got let go on Wednesday, and by Friday, I had signed a new contract for my new job, which was a double promotion, basically. But why am I telling you this story? Yes, it has to do with my strategy on the credit card game, but at the same time, I think it's important to talk about investing. It's important to talk about life, because we only talk about credit cards and points, but to get into the credit card game, you need to make sure you're spending. If you don't spend, if you don't make enough to spend, you don't make anything. Like, I remember the days when I was making peanuts and I had credit cards that would give me 3-4x and I'd get nothing because I wasn't spending anything. I was eating rice and beans. So you need to make money and spend money to get points, to travel. In the end of the day, credit cards alone are not enough. We could talk all day about what stock to buy, what gives dividends, crypto, whatever. But I think I want to make a point, because I see a lot on YouTube talking about, a lot of channels and a lot of influencers that pop up in my screen every day talking about the useless nature of colleges, which to a point I agree, and how expensive they have become, and that they're not a good deal anymore, and you should consider just going into the trades or opening your own business. One thing you don't know about me is that I grew up in a business family. Not only my father, but everybody in my family, from grandparents to uncles, they're all self-made business owners, and I know inside out how this works. And if you think that going 9 to 5 to a job is a bit too much for you, Monday to Friday, yeah, the one thing that these people don't tell you, that keep telling you that you're gonna get dividends, your money's gonna make money, and you're gonna be retired by 40. The one thing they don't tell you is that these people work 7 days a week, sometimes 10, 12, 15 hours a day. There's no limit. It's their own business. So my father, 7 days a week, easily 12 to 14 hours a day, easily. Good money. He is good money. My uncle too, my grandpas too. They were all making good money, but they were working 7 days a week. It was a hustle always to take time off, because even though we had employees, there was not the kind of trust to just leave them alone. One my grandparent of my granddad on my father's side, he had 3 butcher stores, all his own production. So big business. My grandpa on my mother's side, water wells. So he has his own equipment. He had his own equipment, drills and everything. His son, my uncle, inherited everything and expanded on it. Everybody worked their ass off. My dad in the restaurant business, 2 restaurants downtown our city, very touristy city, good money, crazy busy. And the other thing is the stress. If you think you have stress as an employee, imagine the stress as a business owner. I know you think, oh, it's my business, so I do whatever I want, but that's not the case. When you have bills to pay, when you have employees that depend on you, when you have IRS investigating for things that somebody might said about your business, there's many things that you guys, most of you that grew up in an employee kind of family, don't understand. And all these people that I see on YouTube, they're saying, oh, you just go and buy a house and then you renovate it, you rent it, and then you go to the next, and then you have a portfolio of 20 homes. If it was that easy, everybody would have done it. It's not that easy, because the other thing that you might not know about me is that I've been working up to like a few years ago. I was working into home development and remodeling business here in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. We were doing kitchens, bathrooms, additions, and especially the people that were doing all that was before they sold anything, or they were doing it as an investment. And it's hard. It's very complicated. It costs a lot of money. And what do you do when the cash flow is not there for whatever reason? What if the renter is not paying? What if you stretch thin your finances and then all of a sudden something pops up in that house and now you don't have the money to fix it? There's many complications. So going back to what I said earlier about me getting fired and getting another job, I wanted to bring my example as an example of somebody that came to this country with nothing except for an education. And I wanted to highlight some things. So first of all, I came to this country with a bachelor's in interior architecture and design. I was working while studying. My degrees from the UK. I was studying the whole time, full-time, working full-time, paying the degree as I was going. So when I graduated, I had 0 debt. Now you might say you can't do that here, but that's not true, because I know how much money people make here. You can stay at your father's or mother's home for a few years, go to the local college, at least for the first 2 years, and take it from there. So there's no good excuse about that, if you ask me. But I wanted to do design. My heart was for design. So I thought I'm going to make the next great buildings, beautiful lounges. I was imagining hotels, things like that. And then I went to the market and I realized that everything is about budget, about money, convincing the customer, convincing your boss. And even if you're a business owner, your boss is your customer. So you can't just do whatever. There's probably 5 architects in the world that can do whatever they want, and the customer has to go with what they say, otherwise they won't do the project. But that's like 5 in the world. So who's the real designer? The real designer is not me. The real designer is whomever makes the financial decisions. That's when I realized that I need to jump into finance or business, and that way I can have a say of what's really going on. Funny enough. So that's when I got my MBA, and that's the reason why I did it, because I wanted to be able to do other things, make more money, obviously, but also be the decision maker. How did that work for me, though? How did education work for me? As I mentioned, I already had a degree. I was working while in school. I was getting projects while in school as a freelancer. So part of my tuition was paid by what I was studying. I come out, I start working in Greece for a year, another year in London. By the time I came here, I had over 2 years of experience, but nobody cared because they said, that's all European experience. Show me what an eighth of an inch looks like. And I was like, an eighth of an inch? Oh my God, that's like 2.5 centimeters. So an eighth is like what here? So it was very complicated for me to understand all this imperial system. It took me some time. So when I was offered a job, I was offered a junior job. But the junior job as a professional is still better than an whatever job without a specialization. So I didn't have to work at well, actually I did work as a waiter the first few months. That's when I had it really tough. But my first paid job here, I was getting paid $52,000 a year back in 2015. $52,000 was my first job. How did that work? I stayed there 2.5 years. I got another position for a bigger company, the one I was working up to recently. And I got a 50% increase on that. I'm not going to say specific numbers, do the math. I'm going to talk about percentages. I got 50% when I went to that job. And from that point, for the next 5.5 years, in total, I got another 24% increase. So things were going pretty well. By the time I finished my MBA, I was making close to 6 figures. But then I had my MBA, so I said, I want to do something with this. That's when I started looking about jobs. Well, the job that I have now reached out to me, funny enough. But what happened was I was in a position to get that job because of my educational background and obviously the professional background. What happens is that the previous job that let me go gave me a severance package. So thinking that, poor me, I have no options, I have a kid, here's a few months of pay, and thank you so much for your service. So I took that money, I signed a new contract, and from one job to the other, I now got another 40% increase on my salary. That's the base salary. But now because I'm a senior manager, I'm getting a bonus, and that bonus is anywhere between 20 to 26% every year. So you do the math, but it's a whole lot more than I was making, and it's a whole lot more from when I started. So that's education for a foreigner that doesn't need. I still have an accent. My name is weird. It's Konstantinos, for God's sakes. People are like having trouble saying my name. So if somebody like me can come to a country like this and make it, I can't imagine what you guys can do if you play your cards right. I was watching a video the other day on Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan, if for those that don't know, is a very famous British journalist. And he had Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway himself is an author, a professor, and he wrote a book, and he was talking about what kind of decisions people make in their lives and how most people go for what's sexy and not what makes sense. So his argument is that most people should go for whatever makes sense, not whatever the heart is telling them, and do whatever the heart is telling them on the side. He says that you need to be honest with yourself, and if that's what you're studying or whatever business you have is what you really want, then go for it. But you have to be honest and say, is this what I really want, or do I want whatever benefits might come from this? And this is very crucial. So if you do it for the Dolce Vita, for whatever image you're going to have in the world, you better go do something that's less sexy, but pays well. And do whatever you think is sexy on the side. I can't let my job go to do YouTube. I love doing YouTube. I'm not getting paid enough to buy even groceries from YouTube. I can do a video every day and it would still not be enough to buy groceries for a week, or 2 weeks. So it's not something that you need to keep in the front burner. It has to be in the back burner, which is why it took me so long to return, because I had to do the moves that made sense financially. Whew. So me going to business to do an MBA was me doing the unsexy thing to be able to possibly do the sexy thing later on as a decision maker. If my passion is design, then I need to be the decision maker. And I'm already more decision maker now than I was when I started my MBA, where I was completely into design 100%. I was just a cat monkey drawing for people that were telling me what they like. But what does that do for everything? Well, first of all, even if you just do a company match, okay, let's say 5% is what your company is matching. It's different to match $50,000 to $200,000. That 5% looks a whole lot different, even if you just do the bare minimum. Then it's your spending ability. You can spend a whole lot more. I'm not suggesting that you should, but the truth is that there's going to be some lifestyle inflation. Like it or not, we moved from an apartment to a house, tomorrow who knows what. And it's not like we're trying to be like, we're not trying to spend for the sake of spending. We had to because the family grew. But connecting that to the credit card game, that spending can give you even more points, and that in return can give you more travel. And because you make a whole lot more money, you can actually afford that travel, which is what I'm trying to say here, is that in the future, I don't need this credit card so much to travel. It's even more as a hobby for me. Keep in mind that when I started this game, I started it because I wanted to visit my wife in Costa Rica, and I wasn't making videos back then. I was just on the consuming side of this. I wasn't making videos about them. So I started only because I had to go to Costa Rica to see my wife. Simple as that. Now my wife is here. I don't need to do that. Whenever I have to go somewhere, I could pay cash for it. But that also gives me the ability to get the good credit cards. I can afford them. I can spend on them. And it's a cycle that continues, upward cycle. I have been on a downward cycle, and it's really bad. But the one thing I can tell you and take out from this video is that you shouldn't rule out education out of your investment. The best investment that you can do is on you. Forget stocks. Forget, I know it sounds sexy, crypto. Forget all that. You can do that on the side if you want, but you need a good income to even invest in these things. My investments now are a whole lot greater than they used to be 10 years ago, just because of my income. And all that can accelerate the growth for everything. Don't hear this influencers that they're trying to push you away from college. Yes, college is a lot politicized in the US, and you should be careful about that. I agree 100%. But if you go to a good college that gives you a good education, and by good I don't mean Ivy League, I mean a decent college that provides education, you only have good things to take, only positives, because even if you don't work on your specific subject, you get the training to make your own research and to have critical thought. More than anything, the critical thought is what's going to help you the most in the future for any aspect of your life. That's all for today, guys. I know it's not a credit card video, but it's something that I had in my heart from when this happened back in end of February, early March. And I wanted to talk about it because I think it's important. I think my example is a good example only because I came here as in a disadvantage, not knowing the culture, having an accent, having a weird name, and try to make it. It's already hard enough to make it even as a native. So you can only imagine how much harder that might be for somebody like me. But that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you like any videos outside of credit cards, because every now and then I want to throw a video that's different other than credit cards. I love credit cards, but I think there's other things that are close to my heart that I want to talk about. If that's something that you like, comment down below. Until the next one, ciao.